of the shittiest things about being put indefinitely between two sides of two different people's hate is that you don't they don't really have a right to expect you to know who you are, because why the fuck would you know who you are? You've spent all your time accommodating their bullshit. You spent such a little amount of time embracing yourself and discovering who you are, and all the time has gone to fucking accommodating the prejudice and hate that they need to fucking function in their lives. And so, unbeknownst to you, even though you're a child, you've been making a more adult decision than they have been. And because of how much is expected of a child to grow and how fast that they're expected to perform in society and how fast they're expected to assimilate, often these kids are just kind of like left behind, because the more that they're put in between that whole cross-section of abuse, the less they learn, the less they perform, the less they express, the less they feel. And so they get started treating like a burden every fucking day, and they just get fucking left behind. And instead of them getting like embraced and sheltered and loved and given the time for recovery and transition that they need, they essentially just get seen as things in the way. At that point in time, that kid will essentially feel that whole banished from the tribe syndrome. That's what I call it. That's not an actual psychological term. I call it banished from the tribe syndrome, which is basically when the emotional priorities of the people that are supposed to be like loving you and showing your affection come before the actual connection that you need. And so day by day, them not giving you that affection is pushing you away. It's the same thing as telling you to leave. Every day that they don't actually tend to the love that you actually need, the need to be truly seen, the need to be truly heard, the need to actually have a real voice, every day that goes passing is the same as telling you to leave. Because think about it, why bother? Why bother staying in a place like that? Where you're not seen, where you're not heard, where you're not like truly touched, where you're not inspired through the heart, where you're simply just expected to function normally, but you're never actually given a true good emotional reason to do that. You're not given a safe place. You go to one side and you have an ultimatum that you have to follow or else it's not safe for you to live. And then you go to another side of your family and you're given to another ultimatum that's not safe. And so you're put into a corner where you fucking feel trapped, and they end up doing like desperate ass shit. Like a lot of friends that I knew, they got into fucking drugs or all sorts of crazy different sex things just because they felt like they had to. Is it technically their choice? Yeah, but emotionally, were they fucking put in that corner? Yes. It's not fair. It's not okay. This is like a nationwide thing. Well, it's not just nationwide. It's kind of a worldwide thing. Parents do this shit to kids all over the world. They've done this for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's like a common fucking thing. Where parents put their emotional frustrations ahead of like the affection that's needed to actually make a living thing grow properly. I mean, a lot of it just revolves around people needing to get laid. They start raising kids and they get tired, and you need to release frustration, and you're just desperate and you seek out for somebody else that loves you, and before you know it, you have another kid that's born, and you don't really have time for the first kid. And so things just start to snowball. And so eventually that kid gets lost further and further behind the whole rat race of the whole thing. I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but I'm positive that there's like millions of people who could totally relate with this. This is a pretty common thing that happens because people just expect of each other. We don't miss the depression in one another because it's so goddamn hard to see. We miss the depression in one another because we don't stay close to one another. We don't check up on one another. We don't stay loving and affectionate to one another because we feel like we're all just supposed to do our jobs and fit into the corners of society that we're supposed to fit into. And so we just miss each other passing by like cars on the highway because we're just obsessed with doing what is supposed to be right time for time. I'm supposed to graduate by this time. I'm supposed to have a job at this time. I'm supposed to have a family at this time. And you're so concentrated on looking right to the tribe. You're so concentrated on looking prideful to the tribe that you miss out on all the little beautiful things that exist between all of that neediness. Like sometimes your loved ones, or your children, or your wife, or your mother, or anybody who's lost a relative to depression that they think they didn't notice, but you have no idea how important human closeness is. It is so much more important than wealth, than religion, than money, than anything like that. With human closeness, money and religion, all those things are kind of obsolete. And with human closeness, then depression is hard to see. And then we become considerate enough to not put each other in emotional conflicts where we're at odds. You would never put children in corners like that, where you have to put the soul and the welfare of your ancestors before your own heart because you feel guilty for just wanting to be safe and free and alive. A world where kids have to be guilty for wanting to be safe and free and alive because it might contradict or make their parents' prejudice of the past uncomfortable. This is a disgusting world to live in. I don't want to live in that world. It's a dumb world to live in. We don't have to live in it.